Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh and today I am so excited to finally get to show you and tell you in all kinds of detail about my brand new daily driver that we are sitting in right now. Some of you will already have seen this car in my last video, and I have a short that I put up on the channel which was a sneak preview of this car, but I am so excited, in love with this little car. This is, yes, the third brand new car we've bought this year. No, that is not normal for us. We usually keep our cars for at least 3 years, but this year's gotten thrown off because of the new GX that we just brought home, and that car we only bought because the V8 is going away at the end of the year, full stop, so it was sort of now or never. Now, if you've been with me here on the channel for any period of time, you know that to get that GX, we traded in a 2023 NX Hybrid, and when we did so, I was basically left my two personal cars, like my individual personal cars, were then the GX 460 and my 4Runner TRD Pro, and neither of them were the kind of cars that I personally felt comfortable doing my daily driving in the way I do. So for example, I work in a corporate office tower downtown with a teeny tiny parking structure. I travel quite a bit for work, so whatever my daily driver car is gets left at the airport, sometimes for weeks at a time if I'm out of town for that long, and whatever my daily driver is parks in the driveway, so it's exposed to the elements here at home. It parks on the street sometimes downtown. It just doesn't live a very pampered life, and again, I felt kind of bad doing that with either the 4Runner or the GX. So that brings us to this car, which is a brand new 2023 Toyota Prius. And I'm going to pause for the hate. I know I'm going to get some shit for being a car guy buying a Prius, but you know what? This Prius is amazing. It is so far and just way improved over any other Prius that has been out there. And frankly, it is really impressive. It has exceeded all my expectations that I had coming into this car, which were high, by the way. Blown them away, and again, I cannot wait to start driving this on a daily basis, and I'm so excited to get to share it with you here today. Now, right off the bat, let's talk about what this Prius is, because the eagle-eyed among you are probably looking at the B-roll shots I've been showing you here and wondering how this particular car is spec'd, because if you know the Prius, this one is actually a little bit out of spec. It's a little bit out of the norm for the new Prius. For those of you who don't know the Prius, from the outside, this car appears halfway between an LE, which is the base trim, and an XLE, which is the mid trim. And that is actually exactly what this car is, with a few modifications we made to it right after purchasing it. So what we started with was a base Prius LE in the beautiful platinum white pearl paint color, but then we added the upgraded 19-inch wheels, which I found as brand new takeoffs on eBay for a little over $1,600, with the stock Michelin Primacy all-season tires already mounted, which is highway robbery, because the wheels themselves, if you wanted to do this to an LE and you weren't able to find takeoffs on eBay the way I was, the wheels themselves at retail are $595 from a Toyota dealer, and the tires are another $270 each at Tire Rack. And the reason that the wheels were important to me was because, as much as I do really love the LE Prius, and I think it's a great value, as we'll talk about further in the video, the one thing that I cannot stand, I just absolutely is a no-go for me on the Prius LE, are the stock, ugly, dinner plate looking aero cover wheels that come standard on this car. And again, I'll probably put pictures here in the video so you can see the contrast between what this car came with and what we upgraded it to. So now let's talk about why this is my perfect spec. As you may know, if you have followed the Prius over the years, the 5th gen Prius, so this new generation, has gone significantly upmarket and is more expensive by far than any other generation that has come before it. The Prius was always firmly an economy car and was always priced like an economy car, but not anymore. So this Prius LE, which is the base model car, starts about $30,000, which is not a lot in the big picture, but it is more than any Prius has been in the past. However, because of that, even base, every Prius is really well optioned. And unfortunately now, the LE is the only trim that gets cloth seats. And that for me in buying this car was an absolute must, because again, of the way I want to use this car, because it's going to sit outside where I live. For about 9 months out of the year, we have temperatures well over 80 degrees, sometimes even over 100 degrees. And getting into a car with either Softex or Nulux or leather seats in that kind of weather that lives outside, that spends most of its life outside, is absolutely miserable. So for my cheap, economical daily driver, I really wanted to have cloth seats. And the only way to do that in a new Prius is to go with this LE trim. And I have to give Toyota credit here because these cloth seats are actually really, really nice. I'll put some detail footage in the video. This is not like base Corolla or base Camry or rental car kind of cloth seats. These feel really tactile. There's a lot of definition to them. There's a lot of just really fine weaving in them. It feels really good when you're sitting in it, and it feels really robust, like the kind of material that will last for years and years and years, even with daily use of this car. And the same is true when we look at feature content, even though, again, this is a base model car, okay? No additional packages, no additional equipment, nothing that is optional in the Prius. Everything here is base. We still have two features in particular that I really, really love. The first one is called Proactive Driving Assist, and we'll talk about that more on the road. That's part of the TSS 3.0 system, and that is a feature, by the way, that is optional. Okay, it is optional and requires an additional package and payment on an NX and RX hybrid. So cars that are twice as expensive as this base model Prius, you still have to pay extra for proactive driving assist. But here, in this base Prius, it is standard. The other feature that we have is in the head unit, and this is because of the Toyota connected infotainment system, but we actually have built-in factory navigation. Now, I'm weird. I do not like CarPlay. I have never used CarPlay. I can count literally on one hand the number of times I have ever used CarPlay, and it's really only been ever in rental cars. All three of our cars have CarPlay, and still I do not want to use it. So here in the Prius, it's not technically optional, but it is a subscription fee every month that you pay if you want to use the connected navigation in the head unit. And I pay that because I am perfectly happy using that. And I really like, again, that we have that on a base model Prius. So you don't have to upgrade the way that you do with Honda and Subaru to get navigation on a higher end trim. You can get that on a base Prius. With all that said, I will be honest and tell you that while I love this LE trim and it is perfect for what I was looking for and needing, I don't think it's the right trim for everyone, especially if this is going to be your one and only car and you don't have anything else in the driveway or in the garage to drive on a daily basis. I think that getting the all-wheel drive and upgrading to the XLE to get some of the nicer things like the 12-inch screen and the panoramic glass roof, I think it is worth upgrading and spending more on those nice features. But here's the thing, stepping up just one level to a base XLE two-wheel drive adds about $4,000 to the sticker over what we paid, and you can get into the pretty high 30s with an XLE all-wheel drive with all the amenities. And so, because this is not my one and only car, and I do have my Luxo Barge GX when I want to have a more luxurious experience out on the road, for me, the base LE trim with those additional wheels and ceramic tint was really all I needed. And even with those things that we've added to this car, I'm still comfortably under that 34 grand that I would have otherwise spent on an XLE. Regardless of what trim you get though, whether you go stripped out LE like I did, or whether you go fully loaded limited or with any of the prime models, you are going to get what I truly feel is the best, okay, bar none, the best compact car on the market today. If you can get your hands on one of them, buy it, because not only is this car incredibly efficient, and we have been getting real world mid-50s, even brand new, before the car has even broken itself in, we are getting incredible fuel economy in this car, but it's also endlessly practical. Even though Toyota calls this a sedan, they call it a 5-door sedan on their website for some reason, we have a liftback here in the back. So this is much more like a Civic hatchback than a Civic sedan. And likewise with the Corolla, which is kind of a more stubby hatchback, this car has a good amount of length to it. And because of that liftback, the rear seats do go full flat to the load floor. You can get a ton of stuff in this car. It is actually incredible how much space you have once everything is open and folded down. We were even able to fit all 4 of the LE or the XLE wheels, the upgraded wheels, and the tires in this car with room to spare when we first picked it up and we're taking it to the dealer to have the wheels swapped out. It is incredible how much space you have. I could probably even get, I haven't tried it, but I could probably even get my bike fully inside the cabin of this car without removing either of the wheels, which is a real feat for any car, much less a compact car. So with all that said, I think we spent enough time just sitting here in the driveway talking about this car. Now let's go ahead and take it out on the road, where the improvements to this 5th gen Prius are truly monumental. So get your seatbelts on and let's go. Alright guys, here we go, setting out in the new Prius, and I have to tell you, the most remarkable thing about the driving experience of this new Prius is how unremarkable it actually is, which is to say that it just feels like any other Toyota hybrid out on the road, which means it is perfectly normal, perfectly pleasant. There's nothing extraordinarily special about it or great about it, nor is there anything extraordinarily offensive about it. It is just, all things considered, a very ordinary, normal, pleasant driving experience, which I know sounds like a backhanded compliment, but actually is high praise, because normal and ordinary and pleasant are not words I would have ever used to describe the driving experience in a Prius up until this new generation, because every other Prius out there in the past has always felt like it was about 20% short on power. And that was fine for poking around in neighborhoods and city streets and the kind of driving that we're doing right now. But out on the highway, you would very quickly hit the limit of the Prius's power in past generations. This car, on the other hand, has none of that limitation. And the way Toyota was able to do that and manage that was by putting a new engine in this car, which is the M20A. That is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that's an upgrade from the 1.8 4-cylinder engine that was in the last Prius and caused some of that really slow 10-second acceleration. This M20A is actually very closely related. It's from the same dynamic force engine family as the A25A that we have talked quite a bit about and driven quite a few cars with that engine in it here on this channel. So you can really think of it as, again, being a smaller version of the same engine that is in a RAV4 hybrid, a Venza hybrid, the new NX hybrid, and also the new RX and Highlander hybrids as well. Now, what that does for the driving experience is, of course, it means that it feels very similar driving this Prius to the way that it feels to drive any of those other cars I just mentioned. So, under part throttle, under harder acceleration, it does get loud, and it is, again, a rather unrefined little 4-cylinder engine, but keep in mind that this Prius that we're driving here is, again, a $30,000 economy car. And most cars in this segment, so thinking about like Civic, Corolla, Forte, Mazda 3, etc., I mean, you're going to have a very similar experience in those cars as well. The other thing that upgrading the engine in this Prius allowed Toyota to do was actually give this Prius some pretty serious performance. And I'm saying that relative to its class and its competitors. So don't think that this is like a pocket rocket GTI or Golf R. But the Prius used to be a 10-second 0 to 60 affair, and it is no longer that. Because of this new engine, this car, believe it or not, is actually faster to 60 than my V8 Lexus GX, which has twice as many cylinders and twice as large an engine displacement. So we're turning here onto the tollway on-ramp that you're probably familiar with if you've watched any of my other videos, and here I'm going to open it full throttle. There we are, crossing the toll barrier at 85 miles an hour. This Prius is properly quick, and I absolutely love it. Because again, like I said, the biggest thing with Priuses or Prii of the past were that they were slow AF. This is no longer that slow AF Prius. It is competitive now, and really actually toward the front of its class in terms of compact economy cars. And out here on the highway as well, I mean, this car feels as peppy as my NX 350h, and far peppier because it's a smaller, lighter car with a better power to weight ratio than the new RX 350h that we were driving a week ago. And you know, here on the highway, it handles really well. You've got so much good and usable power under the hood, where even up here we're doing about 80 miles an hour, keeping up with traffic. But if I wanted to pass, for example, I mean, I've got all the power I would ever need, and there we just hit about 100. So, I mean, really, this car, this Prius, is no longer a car that you have to compromise on power and speed to buy. Now, out here on the highway, you are hearing quite a bit of road noise, and I've got traffic kind of all around me at this point. And here you do start to feel like you're still in an economy car with the level of refinement and isolation that from the outside world around you. But again, given the price of this car, given its position in the market and its competitive set, I mean, this is the same kind of experience that you're going to get in a Corolla or a Kia Forte or a Honda Civic. Again, for the use case that I had for buying this car, it's more than acceptable. And again, if I really, really want a serene and luxurious and ultra quiet, you know, driving experience wherever I'm going, I'll just take my GX. And again, I think that's why this car is the perfect second car, daily driver, leave it in the driveway, economy car for a lot of people out there. This Prius is just so pleasant to drive now. It's really quite funny because, again, the driving experience, I've always loved the Prius. Even, you know, given all of its shortcomings, I've loved the Prius. The one thing that always stopped me from buying one was the driving experience, and they've solved that now in this new Prius. So I'm all on board with it. Alright, now earlier in the video I told you about a feature that this car has called Proactive Driving Assist, and that was one of the things I said I really, really like because it's standard here on this Prius. Now, what Proactive Driving Assist is part of the TSS 3.0 suite of driver assistance technologies, but it's different than everything else in there because what it actually does is allows the car to use its cameras and all of its intelligence to determine whether and how much it's going to coast versus regen and use engine braking to slow the car down. So again, as we roll up behind this RAV4, that whole stretch just there was the Prius doing its proactive driving assist thing to, again, bring us to a nice, calm, smooth stop behind this RAV4. Now, the one thing I will say about this Prius is visibility in here is not great. Because of the real sexy and swoopy and kind of low-slung design, sculptural design of the car, visibility has been dramatically decreased, I think, than other Priuses in the past, at least from my recollection of them. We've got these big chunky A-pillars here which really shoot out forward, and they're very horizontal because of the steep break of this windshield. And then out the back, I don't know if you can see, but I'll put a picture in the video. Because we don't have that little kind of secondary mail slot window at the bottom anymore, you are lacking quite a bit of rearward visibility, even though the mirror is a good size in this car. So you really do rely quite a bit, I think, on the mirrors, on the blind spot system, and when you're reversing, on the backup camera. This is definitely a car that I think you have to test drive if visibility is an issue for you and something that you really care about in your car. I would not buy this sight unseen if that's you. And again, here at junctions, I'm really having to kind of look around these big A-pillars. And this is something that I don't hear mentioned from every reviewer, so it could be my seating position, my height, kind of where I am. But to see, again, at these wide, kind of large junctions where you've got multiple lanes doing multiple things, you kind of have to look around these pillars because you can lose a car in, again, these big chunky A-pillars. But other than that, again, this is such a pleasant little car. It's just such a great little cruiser, and now that it can competently do highway driving at high speeds and, you know, passing and all that kind of thing, I really think this is going to be a great car for a lot of people. Alright guys, so that is the 2023 Toyota Prius, my brand new daily driver. I am just, again, so head over heels in love with this car. So incredibly happy with what I got for $30,000 because, you know, we live in a market today where all of a sudden every car seems like it's 50 grand and up for a good trim and everything you might want in one. And that is ridiculous. But I love that here in this Prius, we still have so many nice features, such a high quality car, such an efficient car for 30 grand starting with this LE trim. And really this LE trim, I think, is what most people could be very happy with. So totally, and again, head over heels in love with this new Prius, and I've just been having such a blast driving this thing as my daily driver. And finally, the last thing I want to talk to you about here in this video is, if you don't care about all of our other cars, you can just click out and I'll see you later. But for those of you who have been with me here from the start of this channel or very early on into this channel and care about and enjoy the car updates, I do have a big one for you here. So as you may know, again, before we bought this Prius, we already had 3 other cars: RAV4 Prime, 4Runner, TRD Pro, and GX. So when we added this Prius to the garage, that essentially meant we had 4 cars for a household of 2. And we only have 2 garage spaces, so 2 cars were at some point always sitting here in the driveway. But after playing musical cars every morning and every evening, and again always having 2 out here in the sun and in the exposed to the elements, we decided that it was time to part with one of them, and we decided to part with the 4Runner. And I know some people out there are probably gasping and clutching their pearls, and let me tell you, it was a hard decision. I sat on that for about a week straight, just weighing, whether I was really ready to part with the 4Runner. But I love my GX so much, as you've seen in all the videos about that GX, that it felt like it was the right time to let the 4Runner go. Now, the reason that we did, though, the thing that tipped the scales on that, was when I took it to our Toyota dealer to have it appraised, and that's the dealer it's gone to for every service, every 3 to 5 months, it's in there for routine maintenance and all that kind of thing. They offered us, without negotiation, $50,000, which is just insane. Now, I knew the 4Runner was worth a mint, and it always has been, and that's why we've kept it around, because that was the car. It's pure equity for us, so that was the car that, in case of emergency, we could sell it and get a nice fat payday back from it. But $50,000 without negotiating, without selling private party, is just crazy to me, because that is $4,000 more, about $3,500 more than I paid, my base price was for it in November of 2019. $50,000 is also only $700 and some odd dollars less than the out the door price that I paid back in November of 2019. So in essence, I had, with that 4Runner, 4 years of free car ownership. And so getting that much money back from it, getting all the money we paid for it back to us, being able to put that back in our bank account after buying 2 brand new cars in the last 2 months, was really, really nice. So I do hope that it went to a good home. I'm sure it did, because you have to love 4Runners to be willing to buy a 4-year-old 4Runner for more than $50,000. Like, no, just no. So anyway, that is the update. This is the new car. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you all soon. Have a great one, and take care.